put your phone or device aside and immerse yourself in this audio story. Perfect for listening on the move, while relaxing, or for bedtime listening. We release new stories daily, so make sure to like and subscribe to not miss out. This story is based on true events. The algorithm that learned to steal. In the first 297 days of 2025, $2 billion disappeared. Not stolen from banks, not lost to market crashes, vanished from systems that promised to be unhackable, from protocols that called themselves the future of finance. The money evaporated in seconds, transferred to wallets controlled by ghosts, programmers who exist only as strings of code, leaving behind nothing but empty blockchain addresses and the digital fingerprints of systematic theft. But here's what they're not telling you. Every single dollar was taken using the same vulnerability, a flaw so fundamental to decentralized finance that fixing it would require destroying the very thing that makes crypto attractive in the first place. This is the story of how 2025 became the year the dream of financial freedom turned into the greatest crime spree in modern history. And why the people who built this system are terrified. You'll discover what they've known all along. The alarm sounded at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time on February 14th, 2025, Valentine's Day. Inside the monitoring room of Radiant Capital, a decentralized lending protocol built on promises of revolutionary finance. Security analysts watched their screens turn red, transaction after transaction, draining liquidity pools at impossible speeds. Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Arbitrum, every network they operated on was hemorrhaging funds. In 12 minutes, $320 million disappeared into a maze of wallet addresses scattered across 17 different blockchains. By the time the team initiated emergency protocols, the thieves were already 3 steps ahead, their stolen cryptocurrency tumbling through mixers and bridges designed specifically to erase digital trails. This wasn't just a hack. It was orchestrated financial evaporation, executed with the precision of a military operation. But Radiant was just the beginning. What the public didn't know, what the crypto industry desperately tried to contain, was that this wasn't an isolated incident. It was the opening move in what would become the most devastating year in cryptocurrency crime history. A dark business story that would expose the fundamental lie at the heart of decentralized finance. That code could replace trust, that mathematics could eliminate corruption, that a financial system without oversight could somehow regulate itself. The architecture of theft in 2025 is almost beautiful in its simplicity. DeFi, decentralized finance, promised a world where financial transactions occurred without banks, without intermediaries, without the corrupt machinery of traditional finance. Smart contracts would enforce rules. Blockchain would ensure transparency. Mathematics would guarantee security. The billionaire secrets of wealth generation would be democratized, available to anyone with an internet connection and digital wallet. Except they forgot one critical detail. Every system built by humans carries human flaws, and the more complex the system, the more catastrophic those flaws become. Consider the mechanics of what happened throughout 2025, a real-life business story that reads like a financial mystery designed to drain the wealth of millions. DeFi protocols operate through smart contracts, self-executing code that manages billions of dollars without human intervention. These contracts interact with each other in ways their creators never fully anticipated, creating vulnerabilities that exist in the spaces between systems, in the milliseconds between transactions, in the logical gaps no single audit could anticipate. The thieves understood something fundamental. You don't rob a decentralized bank by breaking down doors. You rob it by understanding its code better than the people who wrote it. March brought the Bybit exploit, a corporate scandal that would redefine the scale of crypto theft. Bybit operated one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges, processing billions in daily transactions across markets that never sleep. On March 21st, hackers discovered that Bybit's Ethereum cold wallet, supposedly the most secure storage system in crypto, disconnected from the internet, protected by multiple layers of encryption, had been compromised not through technical sophistication, but through social engineering so elegant it bordered on art. They didn't hack the wallet. They hacked the humans who controlled it, conducting a business crime that exploited psychology rather than technology. Through a coordinated attack involving fake job offers, compromised software updates, and infiltrated communication channels, the attackers convinced Bybit's security team to approve transactions that looked legitimate on the surface, but contained hidden instructions buried deep in the code. $1.4 billion vanished in a single operation, making it the largest cryptocurrency theft in history, a record that would define the entire year as the worst crypto has ever witnessed. The sophistication was terrifying. Investigators later discovered the attackers had spent 7 months preparing, studying Bybit's security protocols, identifying key personnel, mapping communication patterns, understanding exactly which approvals required multiple signatures, and which could be executed by single administrators under time pressure. They created an entire fictional software development company, hired real developers to build legitimate-looking tools, established a credible online presence, then approached Bybit with a proposal for a security upgrade. The upgrade was real. It genuinely improved security. But buried inside the code was a backdoor so subtle it survived multiple audits, waiting dormant until the attackers sent the activation signal. This is the dark side of business in the crypto age, where the enemy doesn't announce themselves, where theft is committed by people you've invited inside, where the weapon is trust itself turned into an instrument of systematic extraction. But here's what sends a chill through the entire industry. The hidden truth that keeps crypto executives awake at night. The majority of 2025's thefts weren't committed by external hackers at all. Analysis by blockchain forensics firm Chainalysis revealed something the crypto world wanted desperately to hide: that at least 40% of the $2 billion stolen this year came from insider jobs, from the very developers and administrators entrusted to protect the systems they ultimately drained. In April, MetaMask, the world's most popular crypto wallet with over 30 million users, suffered what appeared to be an external breach that compromised user funds across multiple networks. 7 months of investigation revealed the horrifying reality. A senior developer had been siphoning funds for 18 months, using access privileges that allowed them to observe transaction patterns, identify high-value targets, and execute thefts that looked exactly like the smart contract failures everyone blamed. They stole $180 million before anyone noticed something was wrong, and they only got caught because they made one mistake. They got greedy and accelerated the timeline, creating a pattern visible only to algorithms designed to detect exactly this kind of systematic internal theft. The betrayal inside boardrooms has reached a scale that makes traditional corporate scandal look quaint by comparison. The real cost of DeFi becomes clear when you understand the victims behind the numbers, the ordinary investors who believed the promise of financial freedom, who trusted in wealth and power being redistributed through technology. Sarah Martinez, a nurse from Austin, Texas, invested her family's $47,000 savings into a yield farming protocol called Greenfield Finance in June 2025. The protocol promised 18% annual returns through automated lending strategies using complex algorithmic trading that supposedly eliminated risk through diversification and instant rebalancing. The interface was sleek, professional, backed by audits from seemingly reputable firms. Greenfield's white paper cited advanced financial mathematics, referenced Nobel Prize-winning economic theories, featured advisors with impressive credentials from traditional finance. 3 weeks after Sarah deposited her funds, Greenfield executed what's called a rug pull. The founders drained the entire liquidity pool, dissolved the company, and vanished with $89 million belonging to 12,000 investors. The white paper was plagiarized. The audits were fabricated. The advisors were stock photos. And because DeFi operates without regulatory oversight, without the consumer protections that govern traditional banking, Sarah had no recourse, no authority to report to, no system capable of recovering her family's life savings. This entrepreneurship secret, turned nightmare, represents thousands of similar stories in 2025, a business documentary written in the language of shattered financial security. The psychology of crypto crime reveals something disturbing about human nature and money and greed in the digital age. Dr. Elena Kovacs, a forensic economist who has tracked cryptocurrency theft since Bitcoin's inception, explains that 2025 represents an inflection point, the moment when the rewards for crypto theft became so enormous and the risks so minimal that it attracted a different caliber of criminal. These aren't the lone hackers of pop culture mythology. They're organized syndicates operating with corporate structure, complete with HR departments recruiting developers from elite universities, finance teams managing stolen cryptocurrency portfolios worth hundreds of millions, and security divisions protecting their infrastructure from rival theft rings. The Lazarus Group, a state-sponsored North Korean hacking organization, alone stole an estimated $700 million in crypto throughout 2025, using those funds to finance weapons programs, circumvent international sanctions, and maintain a regime that would otherwise face economic collapse. Cryptocurrency theft has evolved beyond individual crime into a geopolitical tool, a business scandal with implications that reach into nuclear proliferation and international security. July saw what the industry calls the cascade, a series of interconnected exploits that demonstrated how vulnerable the entire DeFi ecosystem had become. Curve Finance, one of the oldest and most trusted decentralized exchanges, suffered a re-entrancy attack that drained $52 million. The attack itself was technically unremarkable, a known vulnerability that had been documented for years. What shocked the industry was the cascade effect. Because DeFi protocols interact constantly, lending to each other, using each other's tokens as collateral, building complex financial instruments on top of each other's infrastructure. The theft from Curve destabilized 17 other protocols. Automated liquidations triggered more liquidations. Algorithmic sell orders overwhelmed thin markets. Panic spread through smart contracts, programmed to protect themselves by withdrawing funds at the first sign of instability. Within 6 hours, the initial $52 million theft had caused $340 million in collateral damage across the ecosystem. This is the hidden danger no one discusses in the stock market secrets of crypto, that the interconnection celebrated as innovation has created a system where a single point of failure can trigger financial contagion at machine speed, faster than any human intervention could possibly contain. The response from crypto industry leaders has been a masterclass in misdirection and corporate damage control, a business thriller playing out in real time as they fight to maintain confidence while the system burns. Public statements emphasize that blockchain technology remains secure, that these are isolated incidents, that increased adoption actually makes the system stronger through battle-testing vulnerabilities. Behind closed doors, the story is different. Internal documents leaked from major exchanges reveal discussions about implementing centralized security measures. Exactly the kind of oversight DeFi was designed to eliminate. The proposed solutions include mandatory identity verification, transaction monitoring by centralized authorities, circuit breakers that can halt trading during suspicious activity, and emergency admin keys that allow platform operators to reverse transactions. In other words, to prevent theft, they're proposing to rebuild exactly the traditional financial system they claimed to be replacing, complete with all the central points of control and oversight that crypto was supposed to make obsolete. The fundamental paradox is obvious. Secure crypto isn't decentralized, and truly decentralized crypto can't be secured. But the darkest revelation came in October, when an anonymous whistleblower released internal communications from a consortium of major crypto exchanges and DeFi protocols. The documents revealed that industry leaders had known about the systemic vulnerabilities enabling 2025's theft wave since at least 2023, had commissioned detailed security audits, identifying the exact attack vectors being exploited, and had collectively decided not to implement fixes, because doing so would require fundamental architecture changes that would slow transaction speeds, increase costs, and most importantly, reduce the competitive advantage that made their platforms attractive to investors hungry for high yields and rapid trades. They knew the system was compromised. They understood the dangers. They calculated that the profits from operating vulnerable but fast systems exceeded the costs of occasional hacks, especially since the losses would be borne by users rather than the platform operators themselves. This wasn't negligence. It was a calculated business decision to prioritize growth over security. A corporate scandal that redefines our understanding of fiduciary responsibility in the digital age. The leaked emails include phrases that could have been pulled from any business crime documentary. Acceptable losses, user assumption of risk, competitive necessity, market share preservation. They discussed crypto theft the way insurance companies discuss actuarial tables, as predictable cost to be managed rather than catastrophes to be prevented. The regulatory response has been a study in bureaucratic paralysis and political calculation, a rise and fall narrative of governmental authority confronting technology it doesn't understand. The SEC, CFTC, FinCEN, Treasury Department, every agency with potential jurisdiction over cryptocurrency has issued statements, opened investigations, proposed frameworks, and accomplished essentially nothing. The fundamental problem is jurisdictional chaos. Crypto operates globally, but regulation is national. Platforms can incorporate in one country, operate servers in another, serve customers in a third, and route transactions through a fourth, creating a legal maze where no single authority has clear power to intervene. When thieves steal from a protocol based in the Cayman Islands, operated by developers in Eastern Europe, serving customers in Asia, using blockchain infrastructure spread across dozens of countries, who exactly has jurisdiction? The answer, functionally, is no one, and the criminals understand this better than anyone, which is why 2025's thefts have been executed with such brazen confidence. They know the system is unenforceable, that punishment is unlikely, that stolen cryptocurrency can be converted to usable assets faster than any investigation can identify the perpetrators. The technical details of how the theft occurs reveal the genius and the horror of modern crypto crime, a financial mystery that operates in the microseconds between human perception and machine execution. Take flash loan attacks, one of the most common theft mechanisms in 2025. In traditional finance, you need collateral to borrow money. In DeFi, smart contracts can lend millions of dollars with no collateral required, as long as the loan is repaid within the same blockchain transaction, typically a fraction of a second. Thieves borrow enormous sums, use that temporary capital to manipulate prices across multiple exchanges simultaneously, execute trades that profit from the artificial price differences they've created, repay the loan, and pocket the difference. All of this happens in less time than it takes to blink, executed by automated programs, running strategies so complex that no human could operate them manually. The attack is legal in its individual components. Borrowing is legal, trading is legal, repaying loans is legal. But the combination, the intent, the systematic exploitation of mathematical vulnerabilities, that's theft on a scale that traditional law never contemplated. And because it happens inside the code, because there's no physical property taken, no vault breached, no person threatened, prosecutors struggle to explain to juries exactly what crime has been committed. The human cost extends beyond the immediate financial losses into psychological territories that money and greed studies barely begin to address. Researchers at MIT's Digital Currency Initiative conducted interviews with 200 victims of 2025's crypto thefts, documenting patterns of trauma that mirror victims of traditional fraud, but with unique dimensions specific to cryptocurrency's psychological hooks. Victims report feelings of shame disproportionate to traditional investment losses, partly because crypto culture celebrates intelligence and technical sophistication. Falling for a scam feels like a fundamental judgment on your mental capabilities rather than simple financial misfortune. Many victims describe a specific kind of cognitive dissonance. They still believe in cryptocurrency's potential, still follow the markets, still understand the theoretical advantages of decentralized finance. But they've lost their life savings to the gap between theory and practice. Some continue investing, driven by the gambler's fallacy that they can recover losses through the same system that stole from them. Others become vocal critics, channeling their trauma into advocacy for regulation they previously opposed. The psychological residue of crypto theft creates a permanent category of people who understand both the promise and the peril, who can articulate both the revolutionary potential and the predatory reality, whose lived experience makes them impossible to dismiss as either ignorant skeptics or naive believers. September brought innovations in theft that demonstrated how quickly criminals adapt, how the cat-and-mouse game between security and exploitation accelerates in the digital realm. AI-powered theft emerged as a distinct category, machine learning algorithms that could analyze smart contract code faster than human auditors, identifying vulnerabilities the moment contracts deployed, executing exploits before developers even realized their code was live. One group, operating under the moniker the Pattern Recognition Collective, released a statement explaining their philosophy. They viewed DeFi protocols as puzzles left in public spaces, the vulnerabilities as solutions waiting to be discovered, and the extraction of funds as a legitimate form of problem-solving competition. They framed themselves as educators, exposing flaws that endangered the ecosystem, conveniently ignoring that their education involved stealing $200 million. The sophistication of their operations included custom AI tools that could predict which protocols would attract the most deposits based on marketing language, social media sentiment, and historical yield patterns, allowing them to identify targets before those targets even accumulated significant funds to steal. This is entrepreneurship secrets turned predatory. The same innovation mindset, celebrated in legitimate business, applied to systematic theft. The infrastructure supporting crypto crime has become an industry unto itself, a business documentary subject that reveals the professionalization of theft at every level. Cryptocurrency mixers, services that blend stolen funds with legitimate transactions to obscure their origin, processed an estimated $8 billion in 2025, charging fees of 2 to 5% for their laundering services. They operate openly, advertising on forums, maintaining customer service teams, offering guarantees and service-level agreements, like any legitimate business. Bridge protocols that transfer assets between different blockchains have become essential infrastructure for thieves, allowing them to convert stolen Ethereum to Bitcoin, to stablecoins, to privacy coins, in sequences that create virtually untraceable transaction chains. Over-the-counter brokers who convert cryptocurrency to traditional currency, without asking questions, serve as the final step, the point where digital theft becomes usable wealth. These brokers operate in jurisdictions with weak financial oversight, often with tacit approval from governments happy to collect taxes on the laundered funds. The entire supply chain of crypto crime operates with the efficiency and specialization of legitimate industry, complete with reputation systems, dispute resolution mechanisms, and innovation cycles that rival Silicon Valley startups. The philosophical implications cut to fundamental questions about property, ownership, and theft in digital spaces, a wealth and power analysis that challenges centuries of legal precedent. When someone steals cryptocurrency, what exactly has been stolen? Not physical property, no atoms changed hands. Not traditional financial instruments. Crypto exists outside the banking system. What's been stolen is essentially database entries, the rearrangement of numbers in distributed ledgers. Legal systems built around physical property struggle with this abstraction. If ownership is defined by possession, and possession is defined by control, and control of cryptocurrency is defined by knowledge of private keys, then does taking someone's private keys constitute theft, or simply a transfer of control? These aren't academic questions. They're determining whether prosecutors can even charge criminals with theft, or must resort to lesser charges like unauthorized computer access or wire fraud. The gap between technological reality and legal framework creates a space where theft occurs in a kind of jurisdictional vacuum, where the act is clearly wrong, but the legal category remains ambiguous. November's massive DeFi protocol failures demonstrated that 2025's theft problem isn't stabilizing, it's accelerating. 3 major protocols collapsed in a single week, not from external attacks, but from internal contradictions that made theft inevitable. These protocols had implemented increasingly complex yield generation strategies, stacking leverage upon leverage, using borrowed funds to generate returns that could only be sustained through continuous growth in depositors. When growth slowed, when new deposits failed to cover promised returns, the mathematical reality became inescapable. The protocols were functionally operating as Ponzi schemes, using new investor capital to pay existing investors, with the difference being that no human was orchestrating the fraud. The smart contracts were executing it automatically, following logic their creators claimed was revolutionary finance, but which was actually just financial suicide, programmed into code. The 3 protocols represented $420 million in combined losses, and in every case, the loudest voices claiming investors should have known better were the same voices who had promoted these protocols as innovative solutions to traditional finance's limitations. The cognitive dissonance was stunning. Innovation when it works, obvious fraud when it fails, with no acknowledgement that perhaps the structure itself was the problem. The international dimension of crypto crime in 2025 has created new forms of economic warfare and financial statecraft, billionaire secrets transformed into weapons of geopolitical power. Russia, facing international sanctions that restrict its access to traditional banking systems, has increasingly relied on cryptocurrency both to evade restrictions and to fund operations that would otherwise be impossible. Intelligence agencies estimate that at least $300 million of 2025's crypto theft can be traced to state actors using stolen cryptocurrency to fund everything from influence campaigns to military procurement. The implications are staggering. Cryptocurrency, designed to create freedom from governmental control, has become a tool through which governments fund activities specifically designed to undermine other governments. The irony would be almost beautiful if it weren't so dangerous. When North Korea steals hundreds of millions in cryptocurrency and converts it to weapons-grade materials, when criminal syndicates use stolen crypto to fund trafficking operations, when authoritarian regimes use it to circumvent sanctions, we're witnessing the dark side of business at a scale that affects global security and human rights. The question that haunts every serious analyst of cryptocurrency's future is whether 2025 represents a temporary crisis that will drive improvements or a fundamental revelation about DeFi's viability as a financial system. The optimistic interpretation suggests that high-profile thefts will force the industry to implement better security, develop more sophisticated auditing, create insurance mechanisms that protect users, and mature into a system that combines crypto's innovation with traditional finance's consumer protections. The pessimistic view suggests we're watching the inevitable collapse of a fundamentally flawed system, that the $2 billion stolen in 2025 is just the beginning, that the structural vulnerabilities are so deep and the incentives for exploitation so powerful that no amount of patching or regulation can prevent the eventual complete breakdown of trust that makes any financial system functional. The data suggests the pessimists might be right. Despite increasingly sophisticated security measures, theft rates are accelerating rather than declining. Despite greater awareness of risks, victims continue to deposit funds into obviously vulnerable protocols. Despite regulatory threats and law enforcement activity, criminals operate with greater boldness and coordination than ever before. As 2025 draws toward its close, the $2 billion question remains unanswered. What happens when a financial system designed to operate without trust discovers that trust was actually the essential ingredient all along? The promise of cryptocurrency was mathematical certainty, replacing human reliability, code replacing institutions, algorithms replacing judgment. But every theft, every exploit, every collapsed protocol demonstrates that mathematics can't eliminate human greed, that code can't prevent human deception, that algorithms can't substitute for the social trust that makes any form of exchange possible. The victims of 2025's crypto crimes learned this lesson the hardest way, watching their savings disappear into algorithmic void, discovering that trustless finance actually means finance without anyone to hold accountable, without anyone to appeal to, without anyone responsible for making them whole. The theft continues as you hear these words. Right now, at this moment, automated programs are scanning smart contracts for vulnerabilities. Hackers are social engineering their way into security teams. Insiders are calculating how much they can steal before anyone notices. The $2 billion stolen so far in 2025 isn't the end. It's the new baseline, the level of theft that's been normalized, accepted as the cost of participating in what's still marketed as the future of finance. And the most chilling part, the industry knows it. The developers building these systems, the executives running these platforms, the venture capitalists funding this infrastructure. They all understand the fundamental vulnerabilities. They all recognize the risks, and they've collectively decided that the potential rewards justify the guaranteed casualties. This is the real cost of DeFi that no white paper discusses, no marketing campaign acknowledges, no conference presentation addresses. It's measured not just in stolen dollars, but in destroyed lives, shattered trust, validated cynicism about whether technology can actually improve financial systems, or whether it just creates new mechanisms for the same ancient pattern of the powerful, exploiting the vulnerable. Every person who lost savings in 2025's crypto thefts is a data point in an experiment we're all participating in, whether we realize it or not. The experiment of whether humanity can build financial systems that genuinely serve human needs, or whether we're destined to constantly recreate the same structures of extraction and theft we claimed to be escaping. The files were never supposed to be public, the vulnerabilities were never supposed to be this obvious, and the theft was never supposed to reach these levels. But here we are, living through the worst year for crypto crime in history, watching a financial revolution collapse into a cautionary tale about what happens when innovation moves faster than wisdom, when technology outpaces ethics, when the promise of freedom becomes the reality of predation. $2 billion stolen, millions of victims, And the year isn't even over yet. The question isn't whether the system is broken. The question is whether it was ever anything else. Subscribe and listen to our next story below.